In the years that I had in association with Swami Kriyananda, as all of you know, the founder of Ananda, he passed away now a little more than a decade ago. I met him when I was 22. Swami was 41 at that point, and so a lot of time has passed. Let's just put it that way. He was always so energetic about everything that he did. He never, nothing was ever halfway. If he was going to do something, regardless of what it was, if it was just having lunch or writing a book or giving a program or whatever it was, he focused everything he had on it, and he did it like that. I was sort of a person who would do multiple things at the same time, and he was never cooperate with me. You know, if I would bring up a subject while he was reading a letter, he would just silently ignore me until he was ready, he was done with what he was doing. On one occasion, for reasons that are still obscure to me, he was following a particular protocol that had been given to him by a dietitian or by an intuitive healer, and involved never mixing vegetables and fruits. Now, I was a bit of a food fanatic, so I understood that, except I thought apples were the exception. So he wanted carrot juice, and I insisted that he could have apple juice in the carrot juice, and it would taste better. He told me no. I just did it anyway. To this day, I have no idea why, but I did. I put the apple juice into the carrot juice. I was making it all fresh. I brought it to him. He acknowledged that it was on the table next to him. He neither looked at it nor touched it from that point. He didn't say anything to me. He just ignored it like that. And as I said, to this day, I have no idea why I insisted, but I got the message. He'd committed himself to follow this particular course of action. I was not the authority. He'd simply decided, and that was what he was going to do. Now, balanced with that extraordinary committed energy, I was thinking of another incident. Before there was a downstairs to Crystal Hermitage, when his whole house was just upstairs, if those of you who know it, you go down the stairs, there's a closet on the side. That closet used to be his meditation room. And somebody suggested to him that he could soundproof it because we never had any money. So nothing could ever be done by going somewhere and buying something. You had to do it as cheaply as possible. And the egg cartons that hold two dozen eggs like that have all those little pokey things, they're kind of an insulation. So somehow we got a stack of those. We put them all up on the wall, and that was going to be the insulation. But Swami said he could feel all those little points, and it created dissonance for him. So one afternoon he decided we would take all of those down, and somehow we'd gotten some styrofoam sheets. This is we as Seva and Swami and I. We got these styrofoam sheets, and we're going to take all the egg cartons out. We're going to put the styrofoam up. I think there were some curtains involved. I don't remember. We started in the afternoon. We finished about 2 in the morning. And I don't know why it took so long, but it did. But it's vivid in my mind. Swami just never stopped. We were going to do this, so we did it. Somewhere we must have had dinner, but we just kept at it. And then when it was finally finished, it was finished. It was done. That was the end of the story. Now, what I'm thinking about, and these are small examples. This doesn't even begin to, when he was writing the oratorio, the life of Christ in music, he started having what is medically called congestive heart failure. I'd never heard the phrase before, which is a terrifying phrase if you want someone to live, to hear that their heart is failing. It turns out it's a more gradual process than just the heart stopping. But Swami was working so hard to finish that, and then his heart stopped working. His body started swelling up. He had difficulty breathing. He wouldn't stop. He said, the words were, Satan is trying to stop me from finishing this because it's going to help the world, and the dark force doesn't want that. And he said, I'll die before I quit. And he drove through, finished writing it. The next morning, the symptoms abated. It was just, he knew what he was about. Now, having said all of that, there was also this quality about Swamiji, which of course is a teaching for us. I'm talking about an individual, but a life like his was there to give us an example of what we're supposed to be. And he was detached on a level that was hard to reconcile with the commitment that he showed. You know, we tend to think of detachment as meaning, well, it works or it doesn't work. You know, who cares? I'll do my best, but I'll leave it to God. But there's a kind of a back door for failure that sometimes that way of thinking allows. And I never advocated it, but I would see other people advocate it. They would think that there was something vaguely wrong with Swamiji because he was so intense once he sent his mind to it. What about, you know, just sort of who cares? It's just God's will kind of thing. But he never expressed what you would consider to be indifference, as long as there was something, as long as there was breath in him to continue to put out the energy. When I remember during a period of time, he became particularly disinclined toward this world. There's an actual wonderful Sanskrit word. There's no English equivalent. The word is vairagya. And vairagya just means a disinclination for the things of this world. And it's an interesting translation, a disinclination. It's not a loathing, it's not a rejection, it's not a condemnation. It's that I'm just not inclined. I'm not inclined to be interested. Swamiji, excuse me a moment. Inclination. Oh yes, we were. What doesn't matter. We were in a restaurant, but I was becoming exceedingly disinclined for the things of this world, but not in any way that was neutral. Just, I remember Devarshi saying to me once, there was some movie theater, and I don't know if it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like that, which I think was an actual movie, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, think about it. Well, this is what Devarshi said when it was something like that. He said, imagine a planet where they make movies like that. He said, and we're on it. And that was very much with me. And I was just having conversation with Swami, and I said, sir, the next time you decide to incarnate, let's wait until the planet is more evolved. Let's come when it's a higher age, like Satya Yuga, which is the highest level of development. And Swami, he gave me two responses, and he was always very dignified and extremely proper in his manner. But he had just taken a bite of lunch when I said that, and with the lunch still in his mouth, which was very unusual for him, he managed to get out the words, "I never intend to come back," like that. But then he said, even in the highest age, it's still the material plane. It's still the material plane. And then he did say something that's encouraging. He said, but people like us are in charge. And I said, so the whole world operates like Ananda? And he said, yes. But he said, it's still the material plane. And that just kind of stayed with me. Now, living in this world, as we all do, this is falling to pieces, isn't it? Okay. Living in the material world as we always do, we just take it for granted that it's the material plane, don't we? I mean, I'm talking to you with a physical body, I'm using words, you're hearing it with your brain. We're all just operating this way, and vaguely, we know there's something else. I mean, even sometimes more than vaguely, we know it. But we wake up in the morning and, well, here we are again. Just This is the body I'm in. I've been traveling a great deal, so sometimes I have to stop and think, where am I? Which side of the bed do I get out of? Are there any hazards as soon as I step out of the bed? I mean, you have to actually, if you're in as many places as I've been in, you have to actually stop and think. Otherwise, very odd things happen. But in any case, but here we are. I'm still in my body. I always remember my name. You know, my brain still works. I can remember my name. When I was living for 10 years with this wonderful group of women at Ananda, when we had a little monastery there, we'd meditate almost every morning in our teepee temple, and our energy became extraordinarily blended. Even to this day, when I encounter those women, there's something unique because of what we went through. And I used to puzzle, like, we go into that temple, we meditate so deeply together, we did it day after day for a number of years, but each one of us would always take the same consciousness home. Like, why didn't I become Anandi? And then Anandi would become Parvati, and then Parvati would be Seva, and then I could be Seva for a while. It was always me, always me. I never could forget that I was me. And it wouldn't forget me either. It would find me no matter how free I got. So the power of this material world is so intense, and we feel separated from one another. And we feel separated from God. We know it's true. We know it's true that in the beginning was the Word, and everything that was made of that. And I believe it with my whole heart. There's no part of me that doesn't know it's true. That's how I came to the path so early and have never wavered. You know, many of you have the same history. You just know it's true. But still, there's all this that happens. It is so weird. That's the only word I can think of. And just recently, you know, as these things are, I've learned about this man who had this near-death experience. Can't remember his last name. He published a book with a very simple title, Heaven is Beautiful. I mean, that's nice. Some of you may know about this. He had a death. He doesn't call it near death. He just calls it death. He died. He froze to death on a mountainside with a friend. He was 20 years old. He went on a climb up this mountain, this ice climb. He was not qualified. He didn't have the right equipment. And he and his partner ended up there in the dark. And eventually he froze to death. He went to the other side, where heaven is quite beautiful, and then got sent back. And obviously he survived. It was 1980, so it was quite some time ago. Somebody told me he actually later became or is a disciple of Yogananda, although none of his writing indicates that. But this has had a very strong impression on me, and I want to share this part of it. You can go ahead and find the books and find his description. It's very entertaining. I highly recommend it. But what he tried to describe was how completely you leave the material plane behind when you die, and how completely not real is this entire identity that we live with. And then he adds to this, and this is the part that's so powerful. He says, you have no idea. Well, he can't even find words. He said how much we are loved by God, and how personal, how individual that love is. And this is the word beloved, which Master puts in our prayer every time, friend, beloved. We never say it quite correctly, and I've never been able to figure out how to say it correctly. We say friend, beloved, and so it sounds like dear friend. But that's not actually what we're saying. What's being said in that prayer, it's describing the classic ways that we relate to the divine as father, mother, friend, and beloved. There's one more, which is as mother to the baby or father to the baby. But that's a little too hard for the West to grasp. In India, every deity, you have the full-grown deity, and then you have the little baby deity, whatever it is. You have a little baby Krishna, you have a little baby Ganesha, because one of the most dynamic ways for the heart to open is to the child. And we do have it with Christmas. That's why we're all so happy at Christmas, because we have the little baby. We're not afraid of the little baby. We just automatically love the baby. But beloved is the other. And we have the Radha Krishna, which it brings some of that. But that beloved is something that we all long for so deeply, because what it represents is somebody sees me. I'm noticed. It's so personal, isn't it? And so personal in a way that fills all the space. That's why we have such a passion for romance. You know, in our society just operates on romance. Just everything is about romance. And then, of course, because we are a disintegrating civilization, it immediately moves over to sexuality, which, you know, just like takes it as far into the material world as we can possibly squeeze it. But it's really starting from the heart. And it's starting from this desire to really know that I'm loved as me. Not just in some abstract way, but as me. And so this man, this is what he keeps saying over and over, and he's delightful. Because he says, there's no body, there's no brain, there's no words, there's no symbols. Everything I'm saying is completely wrong and untrue, but I don't know what else to do, because how else can I tell you? But he just keeps trying to tell us how we can't possibly understand how completely and totally we are loved. And just reading and relating to this, I've been meditating on it, thinking about it a lot. What would it be like if we really know that? If no part of us doubts, if no part of us is insecure. Now, I had an experience a number of years ago when I was in seclusion, which was about this. And I'm offering all this to you because here we are at the beginning of a new year. You know, it's kind of a time when you get to sweep out and you get to start over. And what we need to sweep out is everything that causes us to suffer, everything that causes us to be afraid, everything that makes us insecure. I mean, we try to do it, by going to the gym and not eating so much cake and all that stuff. And that's all. I mean, that's all to the good. But the point of it is in some way to move ourselves away from what causes us to suffer and toward what brings us joy. That's the motivation for everything. Many of our decisions are hopelessly idiotic, but the intention is always good, always good. So many years ago when I was in seclusion, I was operating as one does, meditating and thinking, self-offering, I want to serve, all the things that one should think. But it crossed my mind all of a sudden, what it says in the Bible, St. John. John says, as many, speaking of Christ Jesus, who was there with them, as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. It's a very interesting collection of words there. And that as many as received him. And that says that the offer was without condition. There was no if you do this, if you do that, if you're good enough this way, all these things. It's just if you received him. It's being delivered, and how many people opened the door and took the package in, or just said return to sender. So I'm sitting there meditating and I think I'll open my heart to Divine Mother's love. It was a fascinating experience because I became aware, because in seclusion you're more sensitive, I became aware of the power and the presence of the divine love insofar as I was able. Just, I could feel that it was there, and I could feel it could get to about here. And then I felt my own heart repelling it. And you think, oh, brother, why? Because it wasn't a conscious desire. There wasn't enough power in the room for me to be frightened. It wasn't like anything like that. I was hardly having the fun of losing self-consciousness or anything like that. But I could just feel it. And you know what I realized it was? It was all of the other things that my heart was clinging to. It wasn't an intellectual decision. It was just that I was vibrating with all these other things. And so when the pure power and love of the divine wanted to come in, it could get close, but because my vibration was opposite, they couldn't merge. And one of the most interesting things I felt was, this is when it occurred to me, you know, how it is, things happen to us and we hold the thoughts. You know, so-and-so did this to me and they never apologized. I was misunderstood in that way. I should have been recognized in this. How could they possibly have done that? You know, just whatever. And it was just all vibrating. And all of that is contrary to the capacity to merge with the beloved, isn't it? So the good news of all of this is it's all in our hands. You know, we're moving every day. We're making decisions. Do I hold on to this? Do I hold on to that? Do I maintain this? Do I maintain that? Am I really right? Sometimes I reduce my own experiences down to something very simple because it helps me see how silly it is. And in that particular experience, what I came to was somebody owes me an apology. You know, meaning I was right. I should have been treated a certain way, and I'm not a vindictive person. It's not. I'm not talking. I don't want to exaggerate it. But all of us have things that we wish we weren't. And the great gift of an experience like I've just been reading about, and I'll go back to Swamiji in just a moment. The great gift of it is there really is an alternative. And he was just telling us, I saw it. He said, what you think of as real isn't real. Just like that. What do the masters tell us over and over and over and over? What we think of as real is not real. The only thing that's real is God's love for us. It gets so simple. Why do I worry about anything? Why do I suffer? What difference does it make? Now, in Swami's life, going on with this, because I was telling you when he said, I don't intend to come back. And there was a lot of time, a lot of years, when his fundamental point of view was, I have a job here to do, and when it's done, I'm done. Like this. But then, later, first of all, I remember him saying on the phone, because his heart was giving him lots of trouble. And he said, I don't remember where he was or what, but he'd been having a lot of difficulty. And he said, essentially, the life force in him that the night before had gotten so weak, he said he felt he could have just slipped away. I mean, this was at least 10 or 15 years before he actually did that, just like that. And I, mastering my own attachments, said, sir, the moment you feel to go, it would be so selfish of us to ask you to stay. You know, go with our blessings. If you're done, we'll be fine. Like this. We'll be okay. We'll miss you. I actually said, it won't be any fun to be on this planet anymore after you're gone. But he answered me so seriously, speaking. Master died after 3.5 years when Swami was with him. He said, I know, I've been through it. I mean, Master left before Swami was 26. He lived to be 87. It won't be any fun to be on this planet anymore after you're gone. I know, I've been through it. Just like, there it is, that's what happens. But then he said, Swami said, something about being free, but then he said, I know, though. He said, I know myself. He said, I used to say I wasn't coming back, but I know myself. I know that I'm going to have to come back. I'm going to want to come back and help you all. He said, I won't come back for any other reason, but I'll come back because I want to help you. I said, well, sir, that's the only reason you came this time, isn't it? He said, well, yes, that's true. But the picture was total vairagya, total disinclination for the things of this planet, combined with an absolute commitment to be an instrument of God in this world. It's the paradox. What can we say? There's just all these different realities that are going at the same time. But you see that vairagya, that disinclination, gives us the power. Because what is of value to me? I mean, sex, wine, money, these are the things, these are the main intoxicants. Money is power over this world, is what it means. You know, intoxicants are just like, I just rather sleep through it. It's a lot of trouble to be here. Let me just go to sleep. It's not just drinking and drugs and so on. It's just the inclination to go down. And sexuality is that desire to experience on the material plane and that deep desire to be loved. That very, very deep desire to be loved. And we just have to figure out that there's only one solution. And unfortunately, we have to keep trying and trying and trying and trying. We have to test the water here and test the water here. And you have to follow those inclinations. You can't just suppress them. You can't just intellectually say, oh, I don't really want it. If I really do, I really do. And what you have to do then is you have to just go and test the water. You have to try it out. You have to have the courage to say, let me follow the force and see what I'm going to learn. And then we have to be honest about our experience. And at the very end of Swami's life, the last years, very end though, he said that his desire even to leave this planet was a lack of surrender to God. He said, why would I want to leave if God wants me to stay? And so we trick ourselves in so many ways. See, I have no inclination for this world, so I'm just going to turn my back on it. But what we're really saying is I have a desire to be out of here, rather than how can I be your instrument? How can I serve? And at the very end, I happened to be in the room with the 2009, and he'd become so weak and unwell. It was the time that Brighu, the ancient sage, had said that Swami would leave his body. And so he went through about a month of being very unwell. And he came from India to Europe, and then even when he got to Europe, he was still unwell. He was so unwell that we wouldn't leave him alone. Somebody stayed with him. This was before Narayani was living in the house with him. And there was somebody stayed with him all night. Anand would stay with him all night, and various of others would stay with him all day. And it was my shift in the afternoon, and somebody was coming over for tea, and I had to wake him up or get him up from a nap. And he was so elderly or so weak. I had a little time with my earthly father who was like this, so I know my father, he got so weak, he couldn't button his own shirt. I remember buttoning my father's shirt. And Swami was like that. I pulled the shirt out of his closet. I'm buttoning his shirt for him. I help him into the living room. He stretches out on the couch. I go back. This is at his house in Assisi. I went back into the bedroom and was just tidying up. I come back out. He's stretched out on the couch with his hands like that on his chest. And I think, oh, God, please, not just when I'm alone in the house. Don't let me be the last person who ever saw him. And so I just walk in, and I could feel it. It was just like that. And then he sits up, and he starts talking about founding the Nayaswami order. And he says, this is what Satan was trying to stop. And we talked for a little bit, and then he got up and started writing a book. I mean, I'd been buttoning his shirt. And then he's writing a book, and then he's inviting everybody over for tea, and then he starts the Nayaswami order, which, is all this. And gradually, he ends up just telling the story that he did have a superconscious experience. He never explained it, at least not to me in great detail. But the essence was, take me if you want, or leave me here if you want. You know, he just reached the point of to want even what sounds like a divine thing, which is to give up my life. Even to want that is to create a vibration that interrupts the receiving of the infinite. This path is so interesting. And we never reach the end of it until we reach that state of bliss. So I think we've got at least another year of work. What do you think? Work on ourselves and work for God, and how very privileged we are. We should thank God every day for that. Bless you.
When song this soundless roar doth come, when drowseth matter's dream on shores of bliss, on booming breeze, all earth, all heaven, all body shakes. The bumblebee now hums along, baby home doth softly sing his song. From Krishna's flute the call is sweet, 'tis time the watery God to meet. Cords bound to flesh are broken all, vibrations burst and meteors fall. The hustling heart, the boasting breath, no more shall cause the yogi's death. The God of fire with fervor sings, Om, Om, his joyous harp now rings. Prana God with power sounds, the wondrous spell the soul resounds. All nature lies in darkness soft, the star divine is seen aloft. Subconscious dreams have gone to bed, 'tis then that one doth hear Om's tread. Oh, upward climb the living tree, hark to the cosmic symphony. From Om, the soundless roar from Om, the call for light or dark to roam. From Om, the music of the spheres, from Om, the mist of nature's tears, all things of earth and heaven declare, Om, Om, resounding everywhere. From Om, the music of the spheres, from Om, the mist of nature's tears, all things of earth and heaven declare, Om, Om, resounding everywhere.
Our rejoice be still upon so is I.